Hi all, welcome to Design in a Storybook World, the look of the magic Faraway tree. Please do send through any questions you have on Slido and we'll try and answer them as we go. On this panel today we have Senior Colourist from Molyneux, Thompson, and DOP Zach Nicholson, BSc.
Hello.
Hello.
When we think back to the stories that shaped our childhoods, most of us don't just remember the words, but the worlds, the colours, the textures, and the atmosphere that made those stories feel nostalgic. And on the magic Faraway tree, there's not just one world. There's the real world, the tree, and all the different lands. What were the challenges of trying to replicate Blyton's worlds visually and make there be a look for the magic Faraway tree as a whole, but then also individual looks for each of the lands?
Well, we'll go into that. If we could hit play on the video. Cool. So this video is just going to break down some of the things. It's going to start off with demonstrating the show look that we generated. Oh, there we go. One of the challenges with making a show look for a film like this is that it's quite a big visual film and you do not necessarily have the sets, the locations. If you're lucky, you've got some costume tests. If you're lucky, you've got some test footage, but you don't really know what the film's going to look like as you're designing the look. And by the very nature of making a show look, it has to be flexible. It has to work in a variety of contexts. It can't be too tailored to one particular scene. And sometimes, particularly on indie films, the request I get is to make a very, very hyper-specific look, which doesn't really work as a shooting look. It kind of like, it holds you back. So what this little breakdown here is going to maybe demonstrate is a lot of what you can do in the final grade cannot be embedded in a look. It's all second, third, fourth degree things that you do in the grade afterwards, which can't be baked into this one thing. So like, you can see here that we took the colours a lot further in the finishing than we did to begin with. And Zach, here we are, the real world.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably have an entire seminar just on LUTs alone,
Yeah.
So I don't want to say too much about them. Just to say that they're probably a lot more crucial for me as a DOP than they are for you as a colorist, because they're really just a guide for you.
Yeah.
But for me, they're a really important part of the process, and obviously all the rushes that everybody looks at every day, they're defined by the LUT is a key element of that look, and the way everybody responds to the rushes, you know, it really has a significant effect on that, and you can, you know, it's interesting to look at the comparison here. But over the years, I've evolved LUTs that I like and work with, and then we kind of started from scratch, didn't we?
Yeah. And I think what you'll probably see later on in this in particular is contexts where the look worked really well, added a bit of the warmth, gave the offline a bit of the flavour that the director wanted and the style that you wanted, but also in some contexts, particularly in some of the more exaggerated environments that appear later in the film, the look wasn't doing things that we necessarily wanted. I'm thinking in particular of Goodies and the way that it kind of pushed it into this brown zone that we didn't really want. But when I was designing it, like I said, you don't have the footage of the film. So when we first met each other and we were talking about the project, I was like, I've got a name, Magic Faraway Tree. I know it's based on fantasy books. I know it's going to have a lot of green in it. I know the lead character, I've got costume tests. I know the lead character wears red. And also I'm going to make a wild assumption that the British countryside is not going to deliver the amazing weather that you probably want it to. As luck would have it, the weather was pretty good.
It was okay, yeah.
But the look was designed to push warmth into places where it might not otherwise be, so you could get a bit more. It's warming up the digital greens, it's warming up the skies, it's warming up the skin tones. And that worked really well for the exteriors in a way that it didn't work quite so well on maybe some of the set builds.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at the set now, and obviously we had to integrate the set with the exterior. They overlapped quite significantly.
Yeah.
And so yes, it was an important part of that. I mean, one of the things the director was very focused on was like the richness of the colour, and the show LUT gave us that, and it was very reassuring for him. It was very satisfying for him when he was watching the rushes every day, and then its usefulness kind of ended at the end of the shoot, didn't it?
Yeah. Certainly in the finished grade, for me, when it comes to like show looks and the things that are on the dailies, half the time I throw them out. Or at the very least, I use them at 50% max, because I don't want the finishing grade to be handcuffed by something that was really just a tool to begin with to kind of start a conversation which then evolves as you have a final cut.
Yeah.
So also the scenes that you're shooting aren't even necessarily, and this goes for every project, but like what you shoot isn't necessarily even in the same context of what you shot it for when the finished film happens. And so you have to really like work fast and be reactive when you're doing the finishing, and not really feel too precious about something you maybe discussed previously.
One of the things about inherent in the LUT is that it's quite easy to break a LUT, because it has to do everything.
Yeah.
I've tried in the past to work with multiple LUTs, and that is just too complex, too complicated.
Yeah.
So you do need a LUT that works for everything without breaking. And so it is very limiting when it comes to the grade, obviously, and there's no intention of ever sticking with it.
Multiple LUTs is one of them suggestions that I think everyone goes into with noble intentions, and I cannot stress how quickly it ruins your post schedule and your VFX workflow. Even just having 2 LUTs in circulation massively complicates things with regards to the transfer of data and CDLs and things. It very quickly adds up. So generally, my advice would always be to stick to one look as much as you can when doing these kind of projects.
There is one other function of the LUT, which is that it does, all the other departments are looking at the rushes, and it does feed into decisions like makeup and wardrobe and production design. They are looking at the rushes, and they will react to how they look. And the LUT obviously can have quite a dramatic effect on certain colours.
Yeah.
And sometimes it really clamps certain colours in a nice way.
Yeah,
and it definitely changes.
It did on her cardigan, because I was pushing certain colours, but I didn't want her cardigan to blow up into CBBC, so it's clamped down in a slightly manner. And in this shot, and now we're going to start getting into the VFX level things, where you see how very clean, very harsh, very digital looking. The tree itself feels kind of digital, and a lot of what the finishing was doing was softening it, taking clarity out, pushing colours away, adding halation, doing anything I can to really dirty up the image. Because one of the references from the director on this film was, he had a few. One was Waitrose Britain. Another one was he wanted it to feel like a lost Disney film from the 60s, as if they made a sequel to Mary Poppins that they found in a vault or something like that. He wanted to evoke a certain nostalgia, and that led a lot of the decisions that were made in the finish. And this is a scene, another one actually, where we'll see it before and after on this shortly, where the ungraded VFX didn't quite have the atmosphere that he was going for. And they're not in log, that is in Rec 709. So the grade took it significantly further than the plates did, with just basic color adjustments. And a lot of these tweaks are these aren't the kind of tweaks that you would want to bake into some sort of overall thing. These are the kind of things you want to do scene by scene, because otherwise they will be breaking the image elsewhere.
Yeah. The other thing, of course, you mentioned the weather. The weather changes, inevitably changes. And the LUT can't deal with that. It can't begin to unify, cloudy weather and sunny weather. But the grade obviously is a different thing altogether.
Now we're getting into the tree itself. Was this at Shinfield?
This is all at Shinfield. So we had 4 blue stages at Shinfield. This journey up the tree was comprised of 4 stages, 4 separate bits of set. There was the base of the tree. There was a bit of climbing in the middle. And some branches, and then this set, which was about 10 foot off the ground, probably. So all these sets around the interior and the balcony are about 10 foot up, and they're about maybe 20 foot tall in total, and surrounded by blue. We also had black and white curtains that we could draw around the blue to try and minimise blue spill, or just to introduce white bounce.
We'll go outside in a second.
So we're looking out at a blue studio now from inside the set.
That is all blue screen out of the window.
Yeah.
Out of the doorway. And part of the challenge of this, as Kareem mentioned at the start, is there are multiple worlds, and there's the real world, there's the tree, and there's the different lands they go to. And you want them all to be distinct, but you also need a thread running through them all that allows it to still feel like the same film. And probably like one early discussion was like the obvious thing to do in something like this is to make the real world feel duller, to make the magical world then, by contrast, feel more vibrant. But Ben didn't want to go down that route on this, and I think it was the right call. He wanted the whole thing to feel golden and nostalgic, and then for the magical world to go even further in that direction. And so the only time that really I was muting it was in the early London scenes, like the kind of drab flat they're trying to get away from is cooler, and then the rest of it is in this like golden land. And then the lands themselves all have their own quirks, which I'll get into as we start to see them.
Well, obviously, we'll be going to the lands next. The first land, the Land of Goodies, is quite different in look to the others. Mm-hmm. It has that more pastel feel. What were the thoughts there to, really signify that we are now in a different place to the real world and the tree?
Oh, we'll see it in a sec, because Land of Goodies is a land full of sweets, and we all know what those things look like, and you have to hit a certain palette when you're building this giant, almost Charlie in the Chocolate Factory-esque world. And it was much more, what separated it from the tree world and the real world is it's more pastel, and it's like got a softer contrast. Still has rich colours, so I'm not easing off the saturation at all, but like the palette was a different one. And here's some of the fully CG stuff, which came in quite cold and needed a little bit, again, softening it, helping it, making it feel a bit more sun-kissed, getting it into the world. And these scenes are connective tissue there. That you've got set, and you've got set, and you've got CG in between them, and you need to really get from one grade to the other grade. And you've got a plate which has no real elements in it to do that transition. So you have to like thread something through those shots that gets you from one thing to the next. Here we go. So what you're about to see here, I'm going to fade this off. That is how this looked with the show look on. The show look which was doing us so much good in the real world environments, making the grass feel richer, making it feel more golden. In this environment was doing something we didn't like at all. It was making everything go brown, which was not the right vibe for this at all. So I think the look was dialed extremely far back, if it's on at all. I can't actually remember. But so this is like, again, you're starting from scratch. You can't. It's not a one size fits all. How was it filming on Goodies?
It was good actually. I mean, we lit it mainly with soft boxes, and then we had 3 20Ks on a scissor lift for the sun, and it was 2 sets over 1 stage divided in the middle by a blue screen. So none of this, only a small fraction of what you're looking at now was there physically on the day. But it was good. So the position of the waterfall had to be decided, the direction of travel had to be decided. A lot of key decisions were being made about things that were just theoretical. But you can see the difference that the final grade makes is really good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you got your CG fluffs coming up here.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's going to be a few bits popping up now where it will cut back to the real world as part of this sequence, and the idea is that immediately I wanted the audience to know where they were in the story just by look alone. And that includes the tree, that includes the real world. So these guys are in the real world, and then it'll cut to the tree as well. And the idea is that these environments are all immediately identifiable by their palette alone, despite all broadly being similar.
Yeah, I think it's quite clear, the point you made about it feeling like the same film here, when you're cutting between the two environments, it'd be very easy for it to feel like a completely different film.
Yeah.
But it's critical, for the audience to stay in the film and not question it and not start thinking about what they're looking at and just be enjoying the visuals. And the grade does a really good job of like melding it all together.
Honestly, I just included this bit because Andrew Garfield is so good at doing a fake cry face, and he recognises it so effectively in this film that I've included it every single time he does it. But again, a lot of the way that I've prioritised the grading of the real world stuff is basically, I mean, this child actress has such amazing eyes. I mean, they all do, but it was just like, you really want to be peering into them, these big doe eyes. You get so much emotion out of them, and it was maximising these close-ups in every opportunity. There we go. Birthdays. Again, another very CG scene. And I don't have a wipe on this, but this came in quite different from how it looks. It actually came in quite red. The CG was all quite golden, and it didn't really quite fit the vibe of what they were going for. And also I added there's snow in these shots, and it's snow, it's icing, because it's a birthday cake. But I added some additional, you can see there, that wasn't there, just to try to like bed it all in, just to make sure it all felt consistent. So now the interior of birthdays.
And actually, when we were shooting this, the LUT was really clamping the blues, I remember. So the moonlight there is like 10,000 Kelvin. I remember feeling like quite surprised. So we ended up in such a blue environment.
Now I think this is a scene where, dare I say, that the director said it wasn't quite working initially, and in the edit they came up with this split screen idea, which once they started running with it, we took it a step further. So when we got into the grade, I was like, okay, well, if you're going for this kind of vibe, then why don't we make it a bit more hard days tonight, it's probably not going to be apparent on this because it's rendered down, but there's like, what we did in this scene was we added a coarser film grain, we added a bit of gate weave, and the rounded edges for the split screen stuff, I made mats for those and put them on top of the split screens, so it had this kind of faux, kind of 60s vibe to it, which just gave it a bit of a texture that was different from the first one. Because otherwise, the palette of these two environments, it could be quite similar to Goodies if you didn't treat it differently.
The other thing about this set is it looked amazing in a wide shot like that, but then a lot of the close-ups ended up being tiny bit bland and a bit flat.
Quite cold as well, some of them, like when you were tucked away in the corners. And it was... There he is. We're getting into some of the miniature stuff now with Nicola.
Yeah.
Which I guess she was shot on a blue screen. Was she separately?
Yeah. So this set is a warehouse in Enfield, I think, and an abandoned warehouse.
Sadly, I don't think I've got the footage of Nicola on a stick, the little tiny fairy on a stick that everyone's reacting to.
Yeah, and I think we had a crane that she could stand on, so it could float around the studio a bit. It was all second unit footage.
Again, we were trying to find something with this environment which, trying to push it a bit further, more separation, make it a bit stranger. So this had a lot of this blue was added afterwards, and we kept the skin tones. You'll see it here. Yeah, it was a bit browner before, and we just kind of amped it all up because it's an unusual scene, and Mark is not giving a subtle performance. So you want to lean into the vibe of it.
But it's the colour separation that really makes it work, the scene. Because it's white and neutral environment in some ways, and there's a few like bits of light and neon and stuff, but there's a lot of sort of like dark grey tones.
Yeah.
And the colour separation really lifts it up in something special.
So we've had a question come through. It's not specifically related to the Magic Faraway tree, but I think this is quite a good point where we've gone from sort of the colours of the first two lands to this land. On some TV shows and movies, the screen's so dark you can hardly see it. What are your thoughts on this, and why do some productions do this?
One of my pet hates. Wow.
Well, you say about things being too dark. Is that the question? Well, I've just finished shooting series 4 of Silo, which is a very dark show. Very dark. And it looks incredible. I think it looks beautiful. I'm not really a great person to comment because I just think it's amazing. I think your average audience member might have a different point of view. But, you know, when I watch Silo, I close the curtains and I look at my iPad and it looks absolutely amazing. But what do you think?
Well, it was a conscious, actually, it's funny you mention it because it was a conscious choice of this to avoid certain I've seen this issue. The reality is it's a factor of things, and it's also partially a trend thing. I've seen it boil down into film versus digital. I've seen it boil down to grading. I've seen it boil down to OLED screens or grade suites being too well calibrated for real world environments. And it's kind of a combination of all and none of them. And it is partially a trend based thing. And there has been a trend for the last 10 years or so to have clamped signals and to keep any and all information that's in the log in a way which I don't personally like that much. And this is a fully CG scene practically, but I like to lean into the shadows. I like them to feel like shadows. I don't mind losing a bit of detail if it makes the lighting feel more striking. And in part of trying to recreate a more vintage, more nostalgic look for parts of this, I mean, this is quite a blue and teal scene, so it's maybe not the best example, but was pushing the lighting where you have nice directional light that feels a bit more old school. I'm leaning into it even further to make it feel a bit more hard light, like you would have shot on film.
Yeah. This was definitely a film where we wanted to see people's faces.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a bunch of the reviews did comment on the fact that it felt very practical, despite, which I'm taking as a win because so much of it wasn't practical. And I think leaning into the hardness of the light is what helped to get that feedback.
So we've just got a couple of minutes left. I know you've touched on VFX and CGI throughout. We've just had another question on how much buy-in from the director and VFX company was there in order to sort of dirty the CGI up?
It's an interesting one because they had an in-house VFX department on this film. They didn't use an external vendor. So the director was heavily involved in the evolution. And the reason the director did that was so he could be so involved in the evolution of the VFX and the look of the tree and everything. But at the end of the day, there were certain bits where they did feel quite harsh in places. They did feel very clean, and it's probably because I've always felt that the shots that work the best. There's a kind of popular notion in lighting for VFX that you should keep it all evenly lit.
Yeah.
But I think some of the most effective shots in this are the ones where you kind of dirtied it up a bit by shooting into a fake sun, and you've got the lens flares.
And also, there was a bit of a to and fro about Atmos when we're shooting. Yeah. And so I was always pushing to keep the Atmos. Yeah. A lot of VFX, not everybody, some VFX supervisors prefer to shoot it, like you say, completely clean and with no Atmos. And there are certain situations where we did just clear out the Atmos because it just was causing too many problems. But I think up in the tree, for instance, all that Atmos really pays off and really makes it feel real.
Yeah, I think the dirtier the lighting, and by that I mean leaning into it, lens flares, strong lighting, the more bedded in the VFX often feel. Yeah. Which is the opposite of the popular kind of way of shooting VFX often.
Yeah. We talked about anamorphic as well, very early stages, but that was vetoed by VFX as well, being too.
I think you have to recreate the anamorphic warping in the CG, which I think adds a complicating factor to some shots. And we're about to get to Space Malta right before we run out of time. And this is the final world. This is where Rebecca Ferguson's Stem Snap is. And this is one where we actually bleached colour out. This is one where it's a bit harsher. I made sure that the greens of Silky's outfit, I made sure the costumes felt the same, but I'm adding contrast and I'm removing colour here to give it a sort of harshness that you don't see elsewhere, but still keeping the colour of the children's costumes, still making sure the plane feels yellow. And here she is with the world's heaviest headrest. It's tricky. We did all that filming in the UK, where we had amazing weather, and you go to Malta and it's overcast.
Yeah, in fact, on this location, it rained, and that bridge was like a foot deep in water in the middle of the day. And so we had a bit of a Lost in La Mancha moment.
Well, the challenge I had was that the CG wides had the sun out, and then the actual location stuff, the sun was in, and I had to like fake clouds passing over to sell
which I really like.
This movement
I love
of light.
the cloud coming over. It's thematically good.
All right, we're getting our marching orders.
Yeah, stop. Great. Keep going.
Well, thanks so much, guys. And if you haven't seen the film, it really is beautiful. So go and see it. And if you want to hear more about the Magic Faraway Tree, the Molyneux sound team are here tomorrow with director Ben Gregor for shaping sound for the world of wonder, crafting the audio of the Magic Faraway Tree. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.